Okay, welcome to Sura and Sasha and the SkyLab studio. My name is Sasha, and I'm going to be going over some things within Purview Unity Catalog today, particularly around governance domains and around about the RBAC and the permissions that are needed. This also includes the fact that we will be created, or I have created, some security groups. Some of those are dynamic, some of them are not, and also some service principals and managed identities. And what I will do is go through the installation or the configuration of the instance of Purview from the point of view in Azure, and then also filtering out to the governance domains. I will show the idea of the conceptual ideology behind governance domains for Microsoft Purview, create some of those on your behalf so you can see, including some prefixes at the beginning of the governance domains for reasons that will become clear later on. And hopefully this will give you a good overview of what's necessarily required and how you can get Purview set up and running for testing purposes, or for also to help with any particular standards and patterns or solutions around architecture of how you would like to use Microsoft Purview in your own environment. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to share the screen so you can see, making sure that I am sharing the right screen. And this is the right one that's here. And as you can see here, so far, I've already started off doing some things. So I'll prep this a little bit up. I've already created a lot of the security groups already using a standard naming convention, which you can adopt or you could use elsewhere and learn from. And also I've gone out and done some research into different organizational structures, whether that's in finance, in banking, in retail, within NGOs, within the UN, with charities, those kind of organizations as well, really just to give a broad understanding of the different types of structures that exist in organizations and how that would be leveraged within Microsoft Purview. So the first bit that you can see on the screen there is I've already got, this is my own version of Azure, and this is my own subscription. And what you can see there, I've already created a resource group already called Enterprise Data Catalog. We're particularly focusing at the moment on the way in which Unity Catalog works, not the other Microsoft solutions. There are lots of them, and I'll show those in other videos. But at the moment, this particular one is just around about the cataloging techniques within Purview. Obviously, the resource groups, it's recommended with best practice, or what I've found from my own experience as well, is making sure that when you put the Purview instance, it may be a good idea to actually add that in to where the most of your data sources are. So if you're an organization, you've got lots of databases, which is the vast majority of the people that are out there, or storage and stuff like that, it's a real good idea on the security from a permissions point of view around access on the security groups and the access control and things of that nature, especially if you're multi-tenancy. It's a good idea to actually create the Microsoft Purview account, as it's called here, or instance, actually within that resource group itself, not on its own. Now, I know different organizations have huge different types of security things that they need to go along and do, so that may not be possible. So this is just a demonstration of how that takes place. If this is not your area, this is really platform engineering. Might be something that's created by another team or other people that exist in your organization, but I'm going to do this to help people out. So as you can see there, I've done the basic stuff that's there, and I've also called it ECD, Enterprise Data Catalog, prod. Also to let people know, because there is some issues around unified catalog, the way Purview became unified several years ago, is the fact is there is no test, development, staging, pre-prod environment for Purview. If your mindset is thinking that's how it works, it isn't. There is only one instance. So you only can have one instance of Microsoft Purview per Azure tenancy at the moment, from where we are on the 30th of March 2026. And the other thing that I forgot is that all of these things need to come with some kind of caveats around the fact is that because it's the cloud, things can change. Need to go back to the networking. You'll need to decide on which one. It's probably going to be private endpoints for most people that are there. Okay, why doesn't that allow me to create? Oh, there you go. Always great with live demos, always takes a bit of time. So you'll have to go away and look at the endpoints and stuff like that for yourself and see how that necessarily goes through. I'll be pausing the video and cutting things out depending on how long this necessarily takes. While that's carrying on, what I will do is I will show you the resource groups that I've created. So good. Not resource groups, sorry. The security groups. So this isn't completely the way I would do it in a normal environment because this is my own, and obviously everything costs me money, so I do this as low as possible. So as you can see here, down here, where it says SG, security group, this is a naming convention called the Enterprise Data Catalog, and then you've got Purview, and then you've got the different types of personas, and these are either users or stakeholders that would use the Purview and the catalog. You may also want to update these and put an extra suffix in there if you only want to separate these out for people who are only using the cataloging areas, because there are different Microsoft solutions that exist as well. So the admin, the Purview admin, is effectively all of the people who are going to be administrating the highest level of access into Purview for the ability of operation and monitoring, and also helping people to be onboarded onto the system or onboarding your data into the Enterprise Data Catalog. The ones below that is the next one, which we're going to do is your data consumer. Data consumers is the majority of your organization, if not everybody. The rule of thumb that I would say is if you've got an internal intranet and people access that, then really those people need to be a member of that group as well. In most cases, if not all cases, that security group is going to be dynamic. And the reason that it's dynamic is you want that for your JLM, joiners, leavers, movers. And what this will enable you to do by placing this security group in different roles within Purview is you'll be able to make sure that you're maximizing the amount of people that can see the data in the catalog. Remembering that is metadata and it's not the data itself. Purview does not hold your data, it only scans it for metadata. But if you're looking at getting the best possible ability for people to find your data and understand your data, then this is the best recommended approach that I've taken so far by creating a security group and applying the security group to various different roles within Unity Catalog, within Purview itself, and also within the data map, which hopefully I should be able to demonstrate. The other two roles here are your data architects and data governance. Unity Catalog within Purview is a governance tool. And primarily, so they're the people that will have quite a lot of ownership around that as a group of individuals, and also your data architects will be able to help with, especially with your glossaries, your OKRs, and your critical data elements, and to some extent with those kind of things that are known as business concepts, which I'll show on the screen. Data architecture definitely needs to be consulted because they're the ones who are going to be advising you around the data models at the enterprise level, the conceptual level, and the logical level. I want to make it really clear right now that the glossary terms within your governance domains, which I'll explain later on, are not a direct mirror of those governance domains. They're definitely not at the conceptual level. They're definitely not at the logical level. They're more likely to be at the conceptual and the enterprise data models of there, but not exactly the same. And you'll see that as you'll learn more about the application. So I'm going to just go and check to see if how's Purview's getting on. And I'm going to go back one as well, because I forgot one really important one, which is your data custodians. And for anybody else that's using this at the enterprise level and knows, this is going to be your data engineers or data engineering. These are the people who are usually sitting in the background that usually at the moment give access to the your data at the moment. So these are likely to be data engineers or your IDAM engineers. Okay, so let me go over to here, and this is still in progress. So don't think we're going to be able to open this up yet. Oh, says it succeeded. Let's give it a shot and see. Now, when you first open this, you need to be having a look to see from the point of view of what permissions that you've necessarily got and what you may need as well. And this always changes every time I open it. I use it frequently throughout the day, and every time I open up, there's always something new that exists. What I am going to do is just show you all of the different bits within Purview. Purview is not one tool, it's a suite of solutions. And as you can see here, we've got the core, we've got risk and compliance, data governance, data security, and then the resources at the bottom. And even this is new, this is usage center as well. So that's really interesting. That's something I haven't seen before. The bit that we're looking at is this bit, which I'm hovering the mouse around, which is called the Unified Catalog. And that's the particular bit that we're focusing on today. So I'm clicking on that and it's going to open up. Now, depending on your access, one of the things I'd recommend, if you can, is convince your organization to give you the highest level of access possible, because if not, you don't see everything in these menu items as I'm opening them up. If you don't see them all, then you can't, you're not going to know they're available, and you're not going to be able to configure them or utilize them for the best use of the organization. Obviously, security and access needs to be proportional and reasonable, but also the fact is that I've been in a situation where access was not given to me because of the nature of the mindset of the organization, and that massively was a negative, because we didn't actually utilize the full parts of the product because we didn't know it was there. Okay, so the first bit that I'm going to ask you to do is click on this bit that says settings. And then when you go into settings, I'm going to go into this bit that says unified catalog. And as you can see here now, we've got roles and permissions, and you can start to see all these ones that are listed down here. So I'm going to go back over to here. I'm going to go back to my groups. And what I'm going to do is start to set up these permissions. So I'm going to grab this one, which is the, not that one, live demos are always great, the data consumers. So I'm going to go along and take this group here. I'm going to copy, go back to here. And the first place where I'm going to put this is here, the global catalog readers. And this basically means that people can view any of the data products, or what Microsoft call as a collection as business concepts, in any of the domains, governance domains that we're going to go along and create. So what I'm going to do is paste this in here. Keyboards are not working, which is great. Wakey wakey. Oh, did that too many times. Okay. So that basically means now that all the users that are in that group, if it's Dynam, are going to have access to any data products that are published. They don't have access to the stuff that's in draft or maybe retired. So it's all the stuff that's effectively live. If you've seen any of my other videos, that'll kind of make sense now, because you want to see things that are there. So that's the first one that we went along and did. I'm going to go back to here. Oh, there's another place that we need to do. So you see this readers roll down here. This is the other one that's here. We need to also add them into this one as well. What I will be doing either after this video, I'll be connecting to my Confluence page, which will be publicly available. I'm going to be putting lots of documentation of the justifications and the reasoning behind necessarily these ones being necessarily selected. Don't have access to that just at the moment, but I will be updating that shortly. So there you go, that gives you the first ones. Then what we're going to do is we're going to take the data architects, the admin, the governance. The custodians aren't needed in this level, but we can go along and put those in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add these in to the data governance administrator role. One of the things that should be mentioned around about now is the fact that the governance domains do not inherit permissions from above. So just because you go along and you put something into what would be considered the top level of a hierarchy does not mean that it will filter down. The data map is different, which I'll come to a bit later on. So I'm going to give the admin access to this bit here, and depending on your nature of your organization, you could go along and give other types of ones as well. The likelihood is that I think that data governance is probably going to need access to it as well. Data architecture and data custodians are probably people who need to be consulted at the governance level, but probably don't need access, but that's up to your own organization. So there you go. And the other place which those people, if you want to create governance domains that you're going to need access to be able to do that, is here. So we're going to put the Purview admins, and we're going to put the governance people in there as well. So what those people will be able to go along and do is they'll be able to create the actual domains as well, governance domains. So this will give you the first setup that's needed. The particular one really is your data consumers, which obviously you've got there. And then obviously there's the admin people that are there, and people don't realize that this people exists. If you want to see where that is again, you go into the unified catalog, you click on settings, you click on unified catalog again, and there it is there. There's different menu items here, but they're relevant for the particular subject matter today. So I'm going to go to governance domains, and at the moment there is none. And this is the bit that I just want to stop and reflect on and explain things out. So there are different types of governance domains, and we're going to go along and create one of those now. And we're going to drop that down. You've got functional, line of business, data domain, regulatory, and project. Depending on your maturity of your organization, the likelihood of this is that you're going to probably use the functional unit. Because that's probably where you are, unless you're really mature within your enterprise of maturity of data governance and management. And what I want to do is scroll up here for something that I wrote, if I can find it, that is. It must be this here. Sorry about this. Gotcha. Okay, so so as you can see here, you have different types of functional different areas. The functional unit is based on your organizational structure. So things like finance, HR, IT, sales, marketing, and operations. It really depends on what your data governance ownership policies say. Who owns the data in your organization and how is it owned? Is it owned by a random individual or is it hierarchical? Is it where it goes from a group level to a directorate level to a department level to a team level, and then it's done by a manager or a director? Or is it done more from a point of view of a divisional structure where it's done by product line? So the way that the product line would necessarily work is slightly different in the way that those are described. So that would be more structured on the basis of products or services being sold within an organization. That would be the way that it would necessarily be shown in that way. Or it could be done from a regulatory point of view or a project point of view. It really depends on the nature of how you describe ownership in your organization. Now, for me, you own the data if you're the people who are giving access to it, and if you're the person that gets the complaints when the data quality is poor. Now, this could be also data that's coming into your organization that may be open source data or stuff that you buy in. So you're not necessarily the person that produces the data, but you are the person that is accountable and responsible for that data in your organization. So an example of that would be the ONS orient survey data, reference data like postcode or zip code or something of that nature. So you wouldn't produce that data, but when you bring in that to the organization, there would be someone that would need to be accountable and responsible for that data being used and making sure the quality of that data and the health of that data is up to the best possible ability to be. So what we're going to do now is we're going to talk about prefixing. So there's the different ones. My recommendation is use your functional units and base this on your organizational chart. So I did a quick Google and GP chat search. So here's one with the British, His Majesty's Treasury. And as you can see here, we've got different names of people, and we've also got different groups and different types of hierarchy that exist. We've got another one. Need to move this bar out of the way. We've got another one here, which is a bank in the UK, which is called NatWest. And obviously, as you can see here, we have different entities at different hierarchical structures. This one's a bit better for the NHS England, because what we've got here is we've got structures from the point of view of regional teams, and you can see the people in the regional teams and the different particular departments, directorates, or directors of what they particularly are. So you could create these out. There's a nice one here for the Department of Transport. This is really good. This is publicly accessible. So again, you could build this out and actually make sure there is a structure and a hierarchy. I've done the same thing for the World Health Organization, and it just gives you an indication across the board of the different ways of doing this. So the first bit that I would recommend is make sure that you prefix everything with numbers. And the reason being is at the moment, Microsoft Purview works alphabetically. If you put things in alphabetically, it won't look like your organizational chart. What you need to be doing on this particular scenario is trying to replicate it within Purview so people can see it. So what we do is we have a first number, a second number, and a third number, and that gives you 3 layers of granularity or 3 layers of structure, and I'll show that out there. So what we're going to do first of all is do 01, 01, 01, and this is going to be the group. So this is going to be the top. and there is no, we need to put something in the description. So group example, and we're going to click on next, and you can add custom metadata, which is to do with the custom metadata or attributes within the product as well. So you can have that as well. So there you go. There's your first one that happens there. And as you can see, I'm an owner. We're going to go into the role. First thing that we're going to do is we're going to put our security groups in to give them access, and that's going to be the Purview admin. I'm going to click on save, and then I'm going to scroll down to these roles, which is your data quality readers and the data quality metadata readers. So the first thing I'm going to do there is do SG and put the consumers in, that one. And I'm going to go along and put the consumers in this one. Now, depending on your organization, you really need to think about this one here and giving all your users access to it. There is a very remote possibility if you're working in epidemiological statistical analysis, or if you're working in clinical trials, or you're working in a area where the cohort of the people that are where the cohort of the data is may be very small. So, for example, I could say if someone is infected with Ebola in the world, there isn't going to be that many people. Therefore, if you give people access to this particular role within Purview, there is a very small amount of chance of that people would be able to identify the metadata that that particular cohort of individuals resides in. Doesn't mean they'll know the individual, but what they will be able is narrow it down. So when one of the rules within GDPR, one of the rules within data governance and data management and controls is the fact is that we're not supposed to be able to identify individuals. This particular role makes it slightly a little bit easier for that to happen without it necessarily being something that someone intended to do so. So therefore, in your organization, you have to think about it. But at the same time, if you deny people access to this role, it may also stop people from finding the information they're looking for. This is up to you. Okay, so we've done that. We've gave those particular permissions out, and we've created the role. You don't have to worry about any of these other roles that are down here. That's for more advanced type stuff later on, but this is just to get you up and working. The other bits that you'll need to add into this bit here is this bit here, which is the data products and the data stewards. You'll need to create service principles, which I've not done, and you'll need to add those in. You'll need to add a read-only service principle into here, data stewards, and a writable one into the owners. And this will enable you for future use with any APIs of either pushing information into metadata, bulk uploading, or if you want to export information out without having those service principles in place, you'll struggle with the API of being able to provide the information, either uploading the information to update data products en masse, like metadata, or also being able to bring this out and put it into Power BI reports or putting it into a CSV file and stuff of that nature. So they're the two that you need. Okay, so we've got the group, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new governance domain, and this time I'm actually going to call this one, in fact, actually I might have screwed that up at the top, 01. In fact, actually, I need to go back and edit this, don't I? So, I think it's just that. There you go. Then the one that's underneath it needs the second one. So this would be 01, 02, I think this is it. And this could be at the, for example, the department level, or in some cases, people may call it the directorate level or directory level, or some people have also the global business units. So that's something as well that I've seen, global business units. It really depends on what you actually want to do, call this within your organizational structure. We're going to just leave that as departments, and this is a demo. We're going to select the same functional unit, but this time the parent is the one that's above. Now you can see those exist in each other, and again we're going to have to go along. Oh, I haven't got the right one there. There you go. You can see now from the point of view that didn't inherit. Those permissions don't inherit down. So we have to go back in, make this person a admin, or make that group that's there. And then in this bit down here, we have to again add in, no, almost too wrong, add in to here the consumers that exist. There is the consumer in that one, and there is the consumer in this one. Okay, and that gives us now a structure from the group to the department. So we're going to create the last one in this example. And this time we're going to go 01, 02, 01. I think this is, if that makes sense. Might need to think about that, but that make it this. I'll put more stuff in the Confluence page so you can see how this necessarily works out. And this is going to be at the team or possibly the unit level. And again, this is the demo. And we're going to create, and we're going to put that under the department. In fact, actually, I think that's 0101, isn't it? Yeah, I need to. I'll recap that at the end once I've created these to make sure I'll stop the video and carry on. So anyway, here we go. So there's the structure, and we're going to add in the admin, and we're going to add the reader role into here, and we're going to add in this bit here as well. Okay, so that gives you a hierarchical structure. The other thing that you need to be doing is at the group level is you need to go out and find who in your organization is at this level, the actual person that's the top director or whatever the most senior person is. Obviously, we all know that some of this stuff will be delegated down, that's fine, but you need to build the structure back up. You need to do it at the department level and you need to do it at the team level. Most of your data products within Purview will probably sit in the team and unit level or at the department level, depending on how wide and how deep your levels of organization are. You can only make 200 governance domains within Purview at the moment, the last time I checked, so you need to be careful about doing that and how it's necessarily put together. I will, at the end, I will attach something into this video or in the middle of it to explain the prefixing a bit better than I did here. I just can't seem to work it out. But the reason why we do that is if you don't do that, then this becomes alphabetical and it's very difficult to find the governance domains and understand and mirror that structure to what may be reflected within your organization. So now we're going to go on to the data map. And as you can see down here, if you don't have the right level of access, you won't be able to create new domains. You can create up to 5 different domains at the moment, and it's a recommended approach. In the future, if you host data from other organizations on their behalf or different departments, depending on how your organization is structured, from a legal point of view, as well as from a regulatory and compliance point of view, it isn't necessarily always used, but what it does do is it does allow you to manage the access in a slightly more granular way. So you can create more of those. These do inherit, so you have to think about that. So one of the things that I've done in the past is the default one is usually the most low level data from a point of view of access. So people, when I say low level, I mean is the risk is the lowest. So that's usually from the point of view within, if you work in government, is official or official sensitive. And then if you're moving further up in the sensitivity of that special, like PI data, you may want to create a new domain. You could also put reference data into another domain as well. It really just depends on the nature of your organization. So what I'm going to do here, as you can see, I've got the default domain there. I'm going to go to the role assignment straight away. I'm going to close all these up so you can see them all on one page. And the one that we're really interested from the point of view is the data readers role. So what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that people can see, our data consumers can see the data at the column level and at the table level and enable them to do that. And remember, it's read, they're going to need that one that's there. So we're going to click there. If you want people to be able to edit the metadata, it's your data consumer. And I'm going to explain that a little bit more detail once I've created the roles collections. So a lot of people now will start doing the dev, test, pre-prod, things of that nature, but that's not really going to work out for you. So what you want to do is look back at what you did in the governance domains and re-replicate that. It's not an exact mirror, but it is a good idea for it to look similar. So I'm going to open that in another window so I can remind myself. strange when you've been using another system for so long and then suddenly you recreate it. It's amazing how much of it just becomes natural to me. So the first one is O0 group. So I'm going to take that. I'm going to come over here, create a collection. And the good thing about it is if you scroll up to the top, oh, I don't know where that's gone. It's a bit strange. And this has changed. Maybe it'll come up. There was a button somewhere which tells you about this inheriting. So anyway, I'm going to go here, put that in. Same thing there. Collection admins will also. You want this necessarily to be the Purview admins, which will probably inherit. So I'm going to take that out to see if that works because I'll be interested. Click on create, and there's the first one. Go into the role assignments, and it didn't inherit, which is interesting. Oh, hang on a minute. No, it would have done because there you go. You can see the data consumers have. But what we need to do is make sure that the admins can go along and do this. So I'm going to go back to the top. I always add these permissions at the top and then they come down if that's what you want to do. Click on here and add on Purview admins. We're going to probably need to add on the governance folk. And just as an example, say our data the data custodians are definitely going to need access, and I'm going to give access to our data governance. Now, obviously, the people at admin level don't get it. It's going to be the data consumers. So when you put that in, those roles now will automatically drop down. If I move down and go into role assignments, you can see that these should inherit. Sometimes a bit quick within the domains. What's going on there? So they're all there. These should, or maybe they just inherit from the top down. Inherited before. We'll have a look at that when I'm creating the other ones that are there as well. So under there now, I need to create a new collection within this governance domain. Not governance domain, sorry, collection map. And we're going to get the department. There, not going to put anything in there. We're going to create that. And when we look at the role assignments that are there, you can see maybe it is inheriting just from that top one and not from the domain itself. That's strange. I'll have to have a look at that. But what has actually come across is this one is inheriting, which is interesting. So that will do that. And then the last one that we need to create is the team or unit. So go back here to here, and you have to make sure that you're doing it inside the one that's above to create the structure. It doesn't like that as a symbol, so we'll get rid of that, and we'll put demo, and we'll create it. And this is the bit where people get confused, you see, on the way of creating it. And what I've done in the past is create two other collection groups, so to speak. One of them is going to be called prod. This is where you keep all your prod data, and really this is what should be. You should then use the Purview data assets to add these to your data products because you want to be showing the data that's the most useful and the most worth within the organization. But I do concede, and it is worth it from a data governance point of view, there's more than that. So I create another folder called non-prod. And what we scan into there, if there is a reason to do so, is your development tables, your test tables, your staging tables, your pre-prod. What you don't do is you don't add those to a data product, because if you do that, it's going to cost you money, because that's how Microsoft do it. It's only Microsoft Purview data assets added to a data product at the moment that actually costs money. It's around about 37 pence at the moment within the UK per month as a managed data or governed asset, I think they call it. But however, if you're in an organization that doesn't use synthetic data, PI data in your test environments, like staging and dev, then you still need to govern that. And what I do is I scan those particular data assets, those tables, into this particular area here. And then what I do is I use labels and tagging to associate them with the data product. So if you have people who are epidemiologists or data scientists, or you have particular people that need a schema of a database, they've got some understanding of exactly what's going on there, and it's enriching the metadata. Your governance team then can manage it and make sure the right appropriate level of access is given to those particular assets to make sure that there isn't a data breach. And that's where your data breach will come. It will come from a staging table that people don't realise that they've reused somewhere else. Now, your production stuff there, obviously scanned in there. And then what you have to do is go into here, which is your data sources. You have to go down to the various different areas. And obviously, there'll be more than just this structure that's here. When you get down to here, you can click on here, which is to register the data source. And once you've registered the data source, then you can go along and you can scan. Now, again, I would recommend also when you're doing this for the point of view of AWS or any of the other ones there, think about the naming conventions that you're using and think about the different types of scanning. Purview is not a data vacuum cleaner. You don't go out like Pokemon and scan the whole world. You need to be proportionate and reasonable and responsible around the ownership. You only should be scanning data assets from a table or database or a report or a CSV where ownership is known and ownership is aligned to the structure within your data map collections or your governance domains. Now, once you've done that, you'll understand. And the scan is probably only going to be 5 different patterns. So it's going to be monthly scan, quarterly scan, half yearly scan, or yearly scan. I do not believe there is that many different data sources out there where the structure of the schema is going to change and the metadata is going to need to be updated. Plus, it's burdensome for the teams to update. Going back to the domains, the bit that you really need to be looking out for is this role assignment. So what I'm going to do is go up to here, this role here. So if you scan, for example, my name's Sasha and I own a data product called the National Statistics Postcode Lookup. And I don't own that data. I own that data. I'm responsible and accountable for it, but I don't produce the data. But in my organization, I am. So I put that into a production collection group, and I make myself and the people around me a data curator, and then that allows those people and only those people to go along and update and enrich that metadata at the table level and at the column level. If you scan everything from a database into that area, you're not going to be able to separate the permissions in the way that you need to be able to control who can update and change and delete the metadata. So that's the basic setup. You've got all the bits that needed to be done. So the readers are there for the point of view of data consumers. You can go along and add various different groups, again, depending on the levels that you need to do. These permissions do inherit to an extent. I don't understand necessarily why those there didn't inherit down, but yeah, they still didn't do it, did they? But if I go along and I put in, for example, one of the other groups, so if I put that group in there, I think I might have already done that further down. Then it is starting to come down and inherit. There you go. You can see the global one, the global administrator that's there as well, that will have access. So hopefully that will give you a starter for 10. It gives you a good understanding of how this works. Obviously, there can be more. And what I'll do is I will go along and I will enhance this over a period of time, and I'll play it back to you at some time in the future so you can see what it looks like when one of these is actually built out in a hierarchy that makes more sense. And also do check out when you're doing this, the difference if you don't prefix your groups and your departments as you're going down. You don't really want to go down more than 3, possibly 4 in the governance domain. And it's the same within the data map. You're limited on how these can necessarily be come across. Hopefully that's been informative for everybody. Give me some feedback. Let me know if there's anything else that I've missed out. Thank you very much for your time. My name is Sasha, and this was a presentation from the SkyLab studio.